What's going on, folks? So this past weekend we had the NYSE Open. For those of you who don't know, the NYSE Open is a vintage tournament that happens every year. This particular year, it was a $500 entry fee, which is a little steep, don't get me wrong, but top eight paid out a piece of the Power Nine. So Black Lotus, Time Walk, Time Twister, five Moxen got paid out that day. It was a really great event, great time. Special thanks to Nick DeWeiler for setting everything up. I know organizing a tournament is not easy, but I really had a great time, and getting the folks of the vintage community together is it's always something special. So as far as the tournament goes, I finished the day 4-3-1, which not great, but I wasn't playing a pillar of the vintage format. I was playing my own deck that I play, and it was a lot of fun to jam some games against the best players in vintage. So the deck I was running is Scam. While it doesn't have any of the typical pillars of vintage, so normally in vintage you'll be playing Bazaar of Baghdad, you'll be playing Mishra's Workshop, you'll be playing Force of Will. I don't know if Deathrite Shaman's gotten its own pillar yet, but it's generally Luris is another pillar, obviously. But the Luris decks all run Force of Will. But the idea is that you're in one of these pillars and you're using these super powerful cards to to leverage and to get advantage over your opponent. So I'm running what was, I guess, could be called Bug Scam. It's mostly mono black. I have a couple splashes green and blue just for some really powerful cards. So I'm going to go through the deck list, and then I will take you through my tournament report of my matches for the day. So starting with the land base, running 16 lands. Vintage things tend to be very, very efficient. Also, you get to play with the artifact mana, so between the 16 lands, the 4 artifact mana, Dark Rituals, Deathrite Shaman, plus Trolls, we're usually pretty good. As long as we can get the mana started, we're pretty good at like building our curve out. 3 basic swamps. Basic swamps are really powerful in vintage because Wasteland is everywhere. There's very, very few decks that don't play Wasteland. Off the top of my head, I would say Jewel and probably Doomsday, but everybody runs Strip Mine. So, I don't think Oath runs Wastelands either. But yeah, Wastelands are literally everywhere. Urza Saga is a very, very popular card in vintage, and the easiest way to combat Urza Saga is Wasteland. So there's very, very few basics in vintage generally. So being able to curve out basic into basic into basic and make yourself semi-immune to Wasteland is really, really powerful. For my dual lands, I was running 3 Bayou, 1 Underground Sea. The only green I have in the deck are the 2 trophies, the 2 Decay in the board, and then the Deathrite activations. And then the only blue are Recall, Time Twister, and then Flux out of the board. So you only really need the 1 C. You could get it off any of the fetches. You can get it from Troll, and I mean Deathrite is the can fix your mana as well. So it might be tough to get earlier on in the game, but you could definitely work your way towards it. 4 Wasteland, 1 Strip, ubiquitous to the format. You're gonna see that of most of the decks. For artifact mana, I just went Lotus and the 3 on-color Moxen. Similar to the Bug decks, we are technically a Null Rod deck running 2 in the main, 1 in the board, and then we have Vamp 2 to go get it, so like a pseudo 4. Against Jewel, Null Rod is a hammer, and it's really the only way you're going to beat Jewel. Jewel was to be the number 1 deck of the day, so I wanted to make sure that I was running at least 2 Null Rods in the main. For our 1 mana spells, we start with Mental Misstep, kind of an auto include in most decks. It's a free spell, counters Ancestral Recall. Recall is the most powerful spell in vintage on its own. I mean, just drawing 3 cards for 1 mana. It's no healing solve. It's pretty good. So you kind of have to run it if you're able to. Previous versions of this deck, I was doing didn't run any blue, so didn't run Recall or Twister. But with Troll and Deathrite Shaman, I felt like throwing in one C for the three and only 3 bayous instead of 4 bayous, I didn't think was that huge of a deal, because even if your C gets wasted, like you're forced to play the C early and gets wasted out, like you can still get blue from Deathrite. You still got the on-color Mox, so I thought it was pretty easy to include. 4 Dark Rituals. So one of the big cards coming to this tournament was Vexing Bauble, and Mon Horizons 3 had only come out, I think, like 2 weeks prior to the tournament, only like a week online. So there was kind of like this, we weren't sure how big Vexing Bauble was going to be in the format. Vexing Bauble was everywhere. I saw a lot of people get locked out on the draw where opponent goes Urza Saga, Vexing Bauble, go, and you're holding a handful of power, and you're kind of locked out of the game at that point. So it's a very powerful card, but Dark Ritual, its downside is that it runs into Mental Misstep, which everybody's already running, and it runs into Force of Negation, which is pretty dead to us otherwise. The only thing it's really hitting is a Reanimate or a Trophy. So, being able to ramp your mana through a Vexing Bauble is really powerful. Also, the games in Vintage are very, very play-draw dependent. So if you're lucky enough to be on the play, like, you can steal some game ones against decks that you normally wouldn't be able to beat or might have a bad matchup against. Pooping out 2 Douthie Voidwalkers, like, hey, that's a 3-turn clock, assuming you're gonna have fetches, Ancient Tombs, things like that. So popping Opposition Agent in response to like their Lorien Revealed is really, really strong. So there's a lot of Vamp Tutors and Demonic Tutors and Tinkers, and so being able to get Oppo out early is really strong. So we're running the 4 Dark Ritual. This is a scam deck, so we are running the scam package. We have the 4 Reanimate, 4 Grief, and 3 Trolls. Discard is very powerful in Vintage. Being able to scam your opponent's 2 best cards, it's powerful in every format. I don't think we're going to be doing it Legacy much longer. I kind of thought Grief was going to get the axe this coming banned and restricted announcement. I'm not saying that I think it needs the axe. But of course I'm very, very biased. I also think that Deathrite Shaman should be unbanned, but we won't get into that. 3 Thoughtseizes. Was running the 4, but I really wanted to fit the Vamp Tutor in, and I figured with the Griefs and the Reanimates that I can trim down 3 for Thoughtseize. Also on the draw, I found myself siding out of Thoughtseize in a lot of cases. So for the Vamp Tutor, which is a very, very powerful card, kind of gives you access to all your cards at any given point in the game. There's a reason why it's banned in Legacy and restricted in Vintage. And to think black decks used to be able to run 4 of them. You used to be able to run 4 Vamp Tutors, 4 Dark Rituals, and 4 Yawgwills. Like, those were the days. Well, no more, folks. 4 Deathrite Shaman. This card is so incredibly powerful. When I initially built this deck a while ago, I was just kind of like brainstorming, like, oh, I can run Scan in Vintage. I had Collector Roof's main. I had the Voidwalkers. I had the Bowmasters. I forgot about Deathrite Shaman. This card is incredible. You almost are never disappointed to draw it. It ramps your mana. It fixes your mana. It advances the game when you're ahead. It helps you stabilize when you're behind. It's incidental graveyard hate. It does all the things for 1 mana. And it blocks Bowmaster. He's incredible. You kind of have to run 4 of it. It's one of the reasons to run this deck. Moving over to the 2 drops, we have 4 Oakish Bowmasters. Any format Bowmasters legal in, it's taking up about 40% of the format. Vintage is very card draw happy. There's a lot of people drawing cards in Vintage. Bowmaster's probably not as good in Vintage as it is in the other formats because the card draw the cards are so powerful that when you're drawing the cards, the if you recall, it's like, okay, I take 3, you get a 4/4, you're gonna lose anyway. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna blow right through you. So it's good. Don't get me wrong, but people can still win through a Bowmaster. Also, Dress Down is very, very popular in Vintage as a way to turn off Collector Oof. So you kind of as a Null Rod deck, you kind of fall into the answers to your own hate. Probably the unsung hero of this tournament, and this card completely overperformed. Douthie Voidwalker is a fucking house. 2 black, which in a mono black deck can actually be kind of tough sometimes, but turning off graveyards is powerful. 3/2 unblockable. I mean, I don't think anyone else registered creatures with shadow today, that day. So, this is how you're putting pressure on your opponent. You're thought seizing and you're griefing. You lay a Douthie, and now that is a lightning bolt every turn. And the idea with this deck is that you're going to throw your opponent off balance, and you're going to apply pressure like Douthies and Trolls, like just swing it in. That's how we're doing it. And I've had a few instances, like the spells are so powerful in Vintage. If you have a Douthie Voidwalker out, someone casts a powerful spell, you now get to cast that powerful spell. So like you play a Douthie, and then they, during the game, the Douthie's out and they cast Recall. Like, all right, I get a Recall now. I actually killed my opponent during testing. I killed my opponent with their own Time Twister, where I had a Douthie out, the Twister went into the void, and then I had a Bowmaster, and I was like, oh, I'm going to cast your Time Twister from my Douthie Voidwalker and hit you for 7 and then hit you for 8. And it was pretty good. So Douthie was the I thought the MVP of the day. 2 Assassin's Trophy is my main deck removal spells. In testing, I had gone between 4 main deck removal, 3 main deck removal, and 2 main deck removal. I was using Feed the Swarm for a while. And while Feed the Swarm is very, very good in Vintage in that it kills any creature, and most of the creatures you're hitting were going to be Lurrus, we're going to be a Tarmogoyf, we're going to be, in this case, the Psychic Frog, Saga tokens, so you're not even going to take damage. It also kills Saga on the front end, because Saga's an enchantment, and you don't even take damage from it. So I really like Feed the Swarm, but Oko is a thing, and I needed my removal spells to be able to hit anything. It also hits Bizarre. Like, it just, a lot of decks like aren't even running a basic. If they're running a basic, they're only running 1. So a lot of times they'll fetch it. If they see a Wasteland deck, they'll fetch it ahead of time. So the trophy kind of just becomes a 2-mana Vindicate. 2 Null Rods. Jewel was the #1 deck of the day. I want to have 2 Null Rods main. Vamp for the third, 4th technically in the board. Time Twister, I recently added. Being able to just close out a game is kind of like an I win button. If you have a Bowmaster out, you vamp, end the turn vamp for Twister, and just, end the game right there. I didn't get to do it during the tournament, but if you're going to do that, just make sure that you kill your opponent with the swing on the Bowmaster, and that they can't remove the Bowmaster when you do the Twister, only because giving them 7 cards and then passing turn is usually not a recipe for winning. 2 Opposition Agents. I love this card. It's one of my favorite cards. When somebody cracks a fetch, especially their first fetch, and you flash in an opposition, the look of defeat on their face, it's just priceless. It's part of the reasons why I'm still playing the game. 4 Grief. Grief is incredible card. It is discard that doesn't get hit by Force of Negation, which makes it so incredibly powerful. I can't tell you how many times a turn 1 Grief eats a Force of Will, and then you follow it up with a Reanimate. Like, I mean, you're doing all the things. 3 Trolls of Khazad-dûn. Mana Fixing, put stuff in the graveyard, Reanimate. Is mostly unblockable Vintage. Not really many go wide decks. I hardcast Troll a few times, especially with Lotus. Turn 2 Mox, Lotus, Ritual, poop out of the Troll. Like, all right, yeah, go. Going to the sideboard, we have 2 Pithing Needles. Pithing Needle is mostly for Bazaar. I was bringing in the Lurrus matchups that could turn off Sagas, and Psychic Frog is a giant pain in the ass. So being able to just keep the frog on the ground and hopefully just keep it from drawing a card every turn. Although in the tournament I didn't run into too many psychic frogs. To Abrupt Decay, the removal suite for this tournament I really waffled over. There's so many problematic permanents that like you have to hit. You have to hit the turn that they come into play. Like you can't let a saga get to the second chapter. You can't let you can't pass turn to a resolved oath. Oko, like you have to, if Oko slips through, you have to deal with it that turn. So, knowing that a lot of the permanents that I was going to want to deal with, be it Oko, Oath, Luris, all those decks were on counter spells, so I felt Abrupt Decay was really good. The one issue is that against Jewel, their answer to Null Rods is Argenta Mastercore, and Assassin's Trophy and Abrupt Decay do not hit Mastercore. So the other two removal spells I was running was Dismember. Hits just about everything. It's really good against the initiative decks. But I needed a way to be able to kill Mastercore. I was thinking about Beseiju, which is good in the shops matchups, but this is what I settled on. 2 energy Flux against the artifact decks. Flux is just they can't really progress the game unless they have Academy. Mishra's Workshop cannot pay for Flux. It can only cast artifact spells. So if they have like double Workshop and they've just pooped a bunch of artifacts out, you land a Flux, and it's kind of a board wipe. So Flux was very, very powerful for me in the matchups that I brought it in. 3 Mindbag Trap. If you are on the draw and you're not playing Force of Will, this is just, you kind of have to do it. This comes in on the draw against the super fast decks like Jewel, Doomsday, which I didn't run into. And then 3 Leyline of the Void. I'd kind of hedged on my Bazaar hate. I didn't think Bazaar was going to be a big deck of the day. Vexing Bauble, I felt like just turned off the Hollowvine deck. And I didn't think Dredge would be a big player in the day. There were a few Dredge decks, and I did get paired against Dredge in round 1, to which I lost. So, yeah, go figure that. So that's the list, and let's get to the tournament report. All right, folks. So there were, I believe, 106 players on the day. There was some issues with Melee in the early rounds. I think we had 6 repairs in the first 2 rounds. So tournament's about to start. I get my pairing. Round 1, I'm feature match with Brian Koval, Bosch and Roll. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, big tournament like this, you're like, hey, just let me get a soft opponent first round, right? Just get out of the gate with a win. Like, let's do it. I get paired against probably if not the best player in the room. So I would have been excited to play against him. He was on Oath, and Oath is a terrible matchup for my any deck running creature. I have to play creatures. He's playing Oath. It would have been a very, very bad matchup, but it would have been cool to play against Brian. We got repaired. I got paired against my friend Dave. Well, I'm like, well, Dave's another very, very good player. Like, well, this isn't great. And then I get repaired for a third time against Junknot. Junknot told me that they were new to Vintage and that they weren't a very experienced player. So I was like, oh, okay, I got my wish. Round 1, I was on the play. I kept a sketcher. I'm going to be honest with you. I kept Wasteland, Strip, Ritual, Bowmaster, Deathrite Shaman. Oh, no, I had a troll in there. So I think I drew into the... I think it was Strip, Wasteland, Troll, Dark Ritual, Deathrite Shaman, Bowmaster. So I'm like, I don't know that there's many decks. Like, I could play Wasteland Go. They won't really know what I'm on. I could cycle Troll, and then I don't know any decks that are strong to like a back-to-back, Strip Mine Wasteland. So I kept my 7. He serum powders, which I'm like, I mean, the 2 strips are good. The Deathrite can be good. But really, I probably would have mulled for like a turn 1. Douthie Voidwalker game 1. They can't really answer. So I play my Wasteland. I pass. He plays Bazaar and does his Bazaar thing. Turn 2, I cycle Troll. I play Bayou and then cast Dark Ritual to go Deathrite Shaman, Orcish Bowmaster, which I thought was the right play. But he Force of Negations the Ritual, which set me back a turn. I ended up drawing another Waste, so I was able to kill 3 Bazaars in game 1, and he had 2 Noxious Revivals and was able to get the Bazaars back. So I felt like if I had the Deathrite a turn earlier and could have, like, you know, been eaten out of his graveyard, I might have had a chance game 1, but he ended up doing bizarre things. Sideboarding, I brought out Thoughtseize. I brought in the Needles. Took out Opposition Agent. Brought in Leyline. Trying to think. I think I took out 2 Reanimates as well. I know I brought in Dismember. So pretty sure this is how I boarded. You bring in Dismember because if he poops out a hollow one, you want to be able to answer that. Needle goes on Bazaar. Leyline, for obvious reasons. I kept in Mental Misstep. I did take out Null Rods. So, Needle. Oh, I think it was like this. Yeah, this looks about right. Needles for Bazaar. You want the 2 Dismembers for the hollow ones. Trophy can hit Bazaar. Anything else that squeaks through. The Reanimates aren't really great. Your life total is definitely a resource in the matchup. Reanimating Grief isn't a great play, which we'll get to my game 2. But game 2, I had a Leyline and a Needle, a Grief, a Reanimate, no black card. So I open up with the Leyline. Trying to think what I did. I think I didn't play the Needle until turn 2. I think I had a Wasteland as well. I made a mistake where I had Grief Reanimate. I didn't have another black card. Before I played the Needle, I just played the Needle into Force of Vigor. And I should have just griefed away the Reanimate, taken his Vigor, played the Needle. I might have had a chance. But that was my big misplay, and it ended up costing me the game. So I lost 2-0 to Dredge first round. Second round, Academy Assassins, my friend Justin. He was playing, it says Mono Red Shops. He was playing Uba Shops. For those of you who don't know what that deck is, it uses Goblin Welder, Uba Mask, and Bazaar of Baghdad. Now, why this is a interaction is he's going to play Vexing Bauble as well. So if he gets Vexing Bauble, Uba Mask, I'm sorry, it's not Vexing Bauble, it's Bazaar of Baghdad, because we're both going to be Hellbent at some point. He's also running Stax. It was like called Uba Stax, right? The idea is that he gets an Uba Mask where you don't draw cards anymore. You exile a card. You could play it that turn. If you don't play it that turn, it just gets exiled. And so his idea is to flood the board with permanents, play Tangle Wire and Smokestack, and you get trapped under these effects, which is exactly what he did to me in the first game. There was 2 Tangle Wires. He had a Smokestack up to 3. I had a Deathrite and a Troll I reanimated. I wasn't really able to to get much going. Game 2, I pooped out. I turn 1 hard cast troll recalled myself. So like on the play, I know he doesn't run Force of Will. I know I'm just my turn 1. I'm gonna get to do whatever I want to do. So my opening 7 had the Lotus, a Ritual, a land, and the I think I had a Moxen, the recall too. So I was like, yeah, we're full sending this. And he really wasn't able to catch up through that. Game 3, my 7 had an energy flux. I'm like, all I have to do is get this flux to resolve. So like I griefed him initially, or I thought seized him. And I took a Goblin Welder, and it according to his hand, like it was kind of a weird pick because like Welder's not really going to do anything. I'm like, I don't want you pulling shit back and forth with the Welder when I have a flux in play. I'm like, I want your stuff to stay dead. I was able to land the flux. He did have an Academy, but he just had to start playing his artifacts out just to keep up Academy mana, just to like, I think he was trying to keep the Uber Mask in play, I guess in hopes that he could draw a Bazaar and then kind of go from there. But Flux doing what Flux does, so I was able to win that one in 3. As far as sideboarding for that one was concerned, let's see, we put these back in. Take out the ley lines. Pretty sure I brought in Pithing Needle. I took out the Null Rods because he runs his own Null Rods, and Justin and I had talked about his deck. Like he doesn't care about Null Rod. Like he's running the shops. He's running Tangle Wires. Like, so knowing that he was strong to Null Rod, led me to think that I shouldn't have Null Rods. Oh, I have to put in my reanimates. Yeah. So what did I do? I kept in discard. I know that. I'm missing some other cards from here. Oh yeah, no rods for needles. I brought in Decay to try and kill a. Took out the Oppo agents. So I think it was Null Rods and Needles out for Agent and for Needles and Decay out, Agent and Null Rod go out, Decay and Needle go in. Sorry about that. It was very wordy. Yeah, and that was round 2. Let me put the old Deckaroo back. $60-15. All right. Round 3 was against Bug, Dan Nelson. Game 1 was just a death right war where the game was extremely drawn out. We ended up drawing. I probably should have conceded the game earlier. Well, he had an Oko in play, and he was at such a low life total. I really, if I could have just punched through the last two points, he was like literally hovering like around 2 life. I'm like, man, if I could just like get a death right activation going, I'll be there. But I ended up losing that one. Going into game 2, I just did a super fast like troll Voidwalker and just like smacked him real hard to the point where time got called as we were shuffling up for game 3. So in that case, you don't even get to play. If I remember correctly, for Bug, I bring in Decay, Dismember, and Needle. I took out Dark Ritual because the game is just so grindy. It's not a fast matchup. And I took out Null Rods. They're running 4 in main deck Collector Roof anyway. They're not taking out Collector Roof because it's just a threat. So yeah, against Bug, you bring in your removal spells and needles. Needles mainly for Oko. You're not really going to needle Deathrite in most cases. And so yeah, that's how we side for Bug. Next match. Next match was against Pete Mangus. He was on Luris. These were two quick games. I ripped his hand apart. He didn't have any removal for my creatures, and I just went ahead and beat face. Pete had a baseball game that he wanted to go to, so he dropped after the tournament. Yeah, took it 2-0 against the Luris decks. I bring in the removal. I think I went down a Null Rod. I think you go down a Thoughtseize. I don't think I brought in Dismember. I think I just brought in the Decay. So it looked like something like this. Opposition Age is very good. The Luris decks lean heavily on Lorien Revealed. You can snipe them a lot of times. They'll keep a Saga or Wasteland Lorien Revealed hand. And so if you can nab the Lorien Revealed, that's usually pretty good. They don't run a lot of creatures, so you don't need a terrible amount of removal. You do need to kill Luris when he comes into play. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. I put the decays back. Going into round 5, we're still playing for top 8 at this point. Get paired against Oath. Game 1, I kept a double grief hand. He had Vamp Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and Oath with an Orchard. So I had a misstep. Oh, and he had a Thoughtseize. So with my double grief, I took the Orchard and the Vamp Tutor. I thought he was just going to Thoughtseize me turn 1 because like he didn't have anything else to do. He couldn't cast DT. And so my thought process was he's going to take the misstep anyway. So I don't want to take Demonic. I want to take Demonic and then Oath because then he'll be able to Thoughtseize me and then upkeep Vamp on his turn and get Oath. So I thought by leaving him with Demonic, it gave me another turn to draw discard, which I did not. And he cast an Oath, and I got Atraxid. And then game 2, I'm on the play. I grief him, and he has Show and Tell Atraxa, Oko, 2 Moxen, and a land. So I'm like, okay, I'm either getting turn 1 Oko'd or I'm getting turn 1 Atraxid. I'm like, my best chance to win this is to take the Atraxa, hope I draw into a Reanimate, and at least Reanimate Atraxa, fill up my hand. It's going to get Oko'd. You know, maybe I could draw a Needle or Decay or something, and I didn't get there. So that was my end of my top 8 dreams there in round 4, but we still in round 5, but we continue. Round 6, for boarding against Oath, you bring in the Decays, you bring in the Needles. I took out Null Rod. I think I took out 2 Deathrites. I was talking to a Bug player who's very, very good Bug. If he ever sides out Deathrite against Oath, he just told me I never side Deathrite out any matchup. Like, okay, fair enough. So maybe a mistake on my part. I don't know. I felt like it was the least impactful of all my cards, and I really wanted the Decays and Needles. 2 null rods. Next round was against Tim Everett. Tim Everett was on Simic Control. He was playing Beans. I know Tim from my local store. We play Legacy against each other. I know he plays Beans in Legacy, and then I saw him playing Beans coming into the match. So I knew what I was getting into. We had 3 really great games. He ran away with a Murktide on me, game 1. Game 2, I kept. I had a ley line, which shut off most of his deck. And then game 3, it literally came down to both of us at 1 life. He was able to hardcast an Ethereal Forger. He had misdirected a Reanimate that I knew he had. I was going to reanimate a Grief. He misdirected it to reanimate his Forger. And the Forger is what was able to get him. So really good matches with Tim. Against his particular deck, I brought in Leyline. I brought in Decay. I took out Null Rod. I think I took out Twister. I think I trimmed a Thoughtseize. And I think I trimmed an Agent. I think that's how I did it. Really, I find myself siding out Opposition Agent if it's not like an absolute hammer. Just you need your slots, and you know, especially if they saw the Agent, I might side one out just because like he kind of loses his surprise effect. They're able to play around him. Coming to round 7, Serafino Cerati. His name is John. We didn't test against each other, but we were in the same like testing group before. So I knew he was on Oath. I lost game 1. Game 2, I was able to. He Oaths in Atraxa. Or no, he show and telled in Atraxa. I had a Douthie Voidwalker in play, which already he had a Demonic Tutor under his what's it called? I had a Demonic Tutor he cast in the Void. He Oaths. He plays Atraxa from show and tell. He does his Atraxa thing. He pulls a Force Negation, but he doesn't have another blue card. I'm thinking the game is over. I was like, I can't. I have to cast a non-creature spell. He's going to Force Negation, whatever. So I was like literally about to concede. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go through it, right? So I sack the Voidwalker. I cast this Demonic Tutor. He lets it resolve. I'm like, all right, there's no way this trophy is going to resolve. I get Assassin's Trophy. I trophy his Atraxa, which he lets resolve. I'm like, oh, he can't counter it. Then I reanimated his Atraxa at 8 life, so I went to 1. He had 2 Elk tokens, but I had a Troll that was holding them back. And a 4-power, what's it called? Token from a Bowmaster. So now I get Atraxa. I Atraxa up. And yeah, so I was able to win game 2. Game 3, I got oathed. I didn't have an answer. It's the way it goes. Round 8, final round. Playing for fun here. Playing against Alicia. Alicia was on Jewel, which is supposed to be the number 1 deck of the day. I didn't play it all day. So I saw she was on Jewel because she was playing against, I forgot which one of my friends she was playing against, but she's playing against my friend. So I was watching the match prior, and then when we got the match pairings, I'm like, oh, Alicia, I'm playing against you. So game 1, I tried to vamp for a Null Rod. She carried Null Rod, and then she did the Jewel things. Game 2, I was able to resolve a Null Rod and get there with Troll Beats. Game 3, oh no, game 2, I was able to land a Flux and keep her out and then run the beats. Game 3, I was able to land the Null Rod, but she had double shops into Worm Coil. I'm like, oh, this is tough, but I actually had an answer for it. So I play a Douthie Voidwalker. I take a hit from the Worm Coil. I untap. I Ritual, dismember the Worm Coil, make it a 1/1, and I flash in a Bowmaster. And she's about to make the tokens. I'm like, hold on. Gets exiled because of Douthie Voidwalker. You don't get the tokens. She's like, oh. I was like, and now I'm going to sacrifice Douthie Voidwalker to cast your Worm Coil. And so I had her Worm Coil for my Douthie Voidwalker. Worm Coil went the rest of the way. So on the day, 4-3-1, Douthie Voidwalker getting to steal my opponent's Demonic Tutor got me a win. And then the final round, getting to steal my opponent's Worm Coil Engine. It was a lot of fun. I know it's not the best deck. It's not a pillar deck. I think it has some wheels though. So I'm going to keep working on it. And yeah, that's my tournament report. And thank you so much for checking it out. Have a great day. Love you guys.